Welcome. Today we're tackling one of the most fascinating drugs in all of cardiology, amiodarone. You could call it a miracle drug, but you could also call it a poison. And weirdly enough, you'd be right on both counts. It's a true double-edged sword. Okay, let's get right to the heart of the matter. Literally. On one side, you have a drug that can stop some of the most dangerous, life-threatening heart rhythms in their tracks. It's an absolute lifesaver. But on the other side, it carries this profound risk of damaging the very organs that keep you alive. It's a heck of a tightrope for doctors and patients to walk. So what is this stuff? Officially, it's a Class 3 antiarrhythmic. But what you really need to know is that this is the last line of defense. Think of it this way. Because it's so potentially toxic, doctors don't just hand it out. No, this is the big gun they bring out when other, safer options have completely failed.
So what gives it this incredible power? Why is it so good at its job? Well, its mechanism is what makes it so unique. It's often called the Swiss Army knife of heart rhythm drugs, and for a really good reason.
Here's why it gets that nickname. It's basically like 4 drugs packed into one. See, even though it's officially a Class 3 drug, it does a little bit of everything. It blocks sodium channels like a Class 1 drug. It blocks adrenaline's effects like a Class 2 beta blocker. And it even has some Class 4 calcium channel blocking abilities. It's not just hitting the problem from one angle, it's attacking it from all sides at once. And that is why it works when nothing else will.
But you know, its power is only half the story. The other part, which is just as important, is how our bodies deal with it. And let me tell you, it's weird. This is the story of a drug that moves in and just refuses to leave. Okay, so here's the key. Amiodarone is what we call lipophilic, which is just a fancy way of saying it loves fat. So instead of your body just flushing it out, it gets soaked up and stored in fatty tissues everywhere. We're talking your liver, your lungs, even your eyes. It doesn't just pass through, it basically takes up residence in your body.
And this timeline just shows how long it hangs around. To even get it to work properly, you have to start with a huge loading dose for weeks just to get enough of it stored in your tissues. But here's the absolutely staggering part. Its half-life is over 100 days. Let that sink in. It takes more than 3 months for your body to get rid of just half of the drug. That means 6 months after you stop taking it, it is still in your system, still working, and yep, still capable of causing side effects.
And that brings us to the flip side of the coin. This incredibly long-lasting presence is directly tied to the very high cost of all that power, the side effects, and the very real dangers that come with it.
The first thing you have to understand is that with amiodarone, side effects aren't a remote possibility. They're common, and they can be severe. Plus, the risk just builds over time. The higher the dose, and the longer you're on it, the greater the chances of something going wrong. Now, of all the potential problems, this is the one that keeps doctors up at night: lung toxicity. Amiodarone can cause inflammation that leads to irreversible scarring of the lungs, a condition called fibrosis, and it's not something you can just fix. The big warning signs? A nagging dry cough that won't go away and shortness of breath. This is, without a doubt, the single most dangerous side effect of this drug.
Next up, the thyroid. And this is fascinating. The drug's chemical makeup actually contains iodine, which, of course, messes with your thyroid. It can cause hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid, which is more common and usually something you can manage. But it can also cause the opposite, hyperthyroidism, an overactive thyroid. And that one is way more dangerous because it can actually speed up your heart and make the original arrhythmia even worse. Talk about a paradox. And the strange effects don't stop there. In the eyes, pretty much every single person who takes it gets these tiny little deposits on their cornea. They're usually harmless, but can make you see halos around lights. Then there's the skin. It can make you incredibly sensitive to the sun, and for some people on it long term, it can cause this very distinct slate gray or bluish tint to their skin.
So let's just recap. We're not talking about 1 or 2 minor issues here. We're looking at a drug that puts multiple major organ systems at risk, all at the same time. Your lungs, your thyroid, your liver, your eyes, and your skin. Its potential for harm is incredibly widespread.
So the drug's direct impact on your body is one massive challenge. But what about all the other medications a person might be taking? Right, that's a whole other can of worms, and it's just as critical.
Because amiodarone lingers for so long, it seriously messes with how the liver processes a bunch of other common drugs. Take the blood thinner warfarin, for example. It can send the risk of bleeding through the roof, forcing doctors to slash the dose by half. It can make another hard drug, digoxin, build up to toxic levels. With certain statins, it amps up the risk of severe muscle damage. So managing this drug really means managing a patient's entire pharmacy.
So with all of this, the organ toxicity, the drug interactions, you have to be asking, how can anyone use this drug safely? Well, the answer is, you can, but it requires a serious, rigorous, and lifelong commitment to constant monitoring.
And this isn't a small commitment. We're talking regular chest x-rays and lung function tests to watch for that scary lung damage, blood tests every 6 months to check the liver and the thyroid, regular ECGs to make sure the heart rhythm is actually being helped, and yep, routine eye exams. This is the opposite of a take-it-and-forget-it pill. It's a pact that demands non-stop vigilance.
Ultimately, it really all boils down to this quote. Deciding to use this drug demands a really careful risk versus benefit calculation. It demands that the patient is fully educated on what they're getting into, and it requires that strict, lifelong promise to keep monitoring no matter what.
And that brings us to the final, really tough question. When the only available cure for a condition that could kill you is itself this dangerous, how do you possibly make that choice? That is the complex reality, the high-stakes trade-off that truly defines this incredibly powerful, double-edged sword of a drug.